Work Sharp presents the Northwest Outdoorsman.
Almost had a pretty good chance there.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Thank you.
Holy smokes, that fish is big.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, beautiful bull.
Nice fish.
That's a nice kokanee.
It's cool.
I know it's not a small one, let's put it that way.
Color's great.
Boy, he has good lines, that dog.
Man, that's a nice bull. Nice one.
That was an awesome bite.
This could be the one.
Could be good.
Well, let's just get in that little draw right there, this first one, and go down, see what we see there.
This week on the Northwest Outdoorsman,
You gotta cheer. That's so funny.
the Harrod brothers traveled to Texas for a memorable archery hunt among the majestic oaks of the hill country.
Pretty nice buck.
Work Sharp presents the Northwest Outdoorsman, brought to you by Max Lure, Hooked on Toys, Pacific Calls, Town Ford, Bob File Boats and Motors. The hill country of west central Texas is one of the best known deer producing areas in the world, with a white-tailed deer population estimated at 1.5 million. This high population density causes severe competition for available forage for deer, exotic wildlife, and livestock, so it is important to maintain sustainable population levels. The Northwest Outdoorsman had the opportunity to travel to a working ranch near Bandera, Texas, for an archery hunt to help manage deer populations. Hunts like these prove that you don't always have to harvest a trophy for a memorable hunt.
So it was after light before things really start coming in there, or did you have the turkeys? Did they come in the dark? Did you say that?
There's one deer that came in after got daylight, or before it got daylight, one deer came in. Those 3 bucks pretty much came in. I mean, this is, you can see good to shoot.
This is our 3rd trip to Bandera, Texas. We've gone a couple times in the past, and the reason we ended up in Bandera, Texas is my brother met Mike Lenz, a friend of ours, on a river in Oregon many years ago, and he was trying to figure out how to salmon fish, and so he was talking to my brother and he gave him a few hints. Ever since then, we've been friends with Mike, and then got to know his wife, Susanna. They're very gracious hosts, and we really enjoy visiting them. When we go and stay at Mike and Susanna's, we hunt on the neighboring property, and his name is Les Short. Les is a longtime member of the Bandera community. His family has been there for many generations, and Ron and I feel really fortunate to have met Les.
No, it's all low fence cattle ranch mostly. We leave this place for family and friends to hunt. And because there's plenty of animals, deer, so they come and go as they please. We don't have but one feeder, and that doesn't work half the time. So you have to hunt to get anything around here. We have axis and whitetail.
He has whitetail deer, axis deer, and some wild hogs on the place, so it's a great opportunity, and turkeys, and you get to shoot at anything, basically anything. You can get 5 whitetail deer with your out-of-state tag, and then essentially as many of the exotics as you want.
You can leave these down with the screen on. It just lets more light in. If you want to see what's coming back in here.
Ron and I kind of know where the really good places are. We hunt in tree stands and ground blinds, which is the best way to hunt the whitetails and axis. They're pretty skittish. Unlike the animals that we have here in the Northwest, you really have to know where they travel. Got to be really concealed. You got to watch out for wind. They're just so skittish, and there's so many animals, there's so many eyes looking at you that you really need to, you know, set up in a place where you can have some success and have them walking by you. I really wanted to take the cameras and capture what we did during this hunt. It's always a kind of a balance for me whether I run the camera or I hunt. First couple days we didn't run the cameras at all, and we both kind of hunted out of the tree stands that we set up in our favorite places. And then we began to move our stands around. So one of the first places that I hunted was on this long flat ridge along this little 2-track road that kind of goes through Les's place. It's a neat spot, and in years past there's been a lot of animals traveling that ridge, so it's a good place to put a ground blind, and we kind of set it up by the two-track road.
We could walk across this field with no...
I know, because of the moon. It's not a little cloudy today. The next morning, I hiked in the dark, across the field, over the fence, and then came in the backside of the blind and got in and got all set up.
Just waiting for it to get light.
It wasn't long before a few deer started coming. And I had some kind of go by me behind a big prickly pear cactus, and I just couldn't get a shot over there. They were a little far away. And the next thing to come in was a bunch of turkeys, and it was about 45 yards, which is pretty far for a small target.
Coming up after the break,
Well, I was excited about getting a shot at a turkey.
Worksharp presents the Northwest Outdoorsman, brought to you by Max Lure, Hooked on Toys, Pacific Calls, Town Ford, Bob File Boats and Motors. Welcome back to Bandera, Texas.
It wasn't long before a few deer started coming. And I had some kind of go by me behind a big prickly pear cactus, and I just couldn't get a shot over there. They were a little far away. And the next thing to come in was a bunch of turkeys. They came in by a brush pile, and you get a turkey tag, so I was excited about getting a shot at a turkey. And they had kind of come around the brush pile, and it was about 45 yards, which is pretty far for a small target. I thought they were gone, but they turned, they came back, and they kind of went across in front of me at about 35 yards. I took another shot. I thought I had a pretty good shot, but I ended up missing that bird as well. I was sitting there for a little while longer, and pretty soon a couple more deer came in off to my left, kind of in the same place that the first couple of deer came by earlier. Sure enough, made a good shot, and down she went. Gotta go. This'll be a good chunk of meat.
This is a family homestead that my great-grandfather built. The house is from 1901 to 1910. It never was finished. My great-grandfather raised polo ponies at one time, and he came from Kentucky with his wife. That was probably 1898.
So it's a real comfortable place for Ronnie and I to go because, you know, he's a lot like us, and his family's been there a long time, just like our family's been on our ranch for a long time.
That's the biggest reason we need to do more management, because there's more deer. Because of the axis, the 5 axis equals 1 cow, they eat a lot of grass. We have to manage those better. The whitetail too, just because of population, they don't do well.
We were kind of looking for some places to put the tree stands. Since I was kind of hunting the ground blind, I needed a good evening spot, and so there was this one area where we always see deer going by there. Every time we drive in and out of the property, we always see deer there, and we're like, yeah, we should try setting up a tree stand right here. We found a spot, and there was kind of an opening. We didn't probably think about it real well when we first put up the tree stand, because as soon as I got into that stand and the sun started going down, I realized that I'm going to be sitting right in the sun as it goes down over the horizon there. and some deer started coming in, but it was pretty open there, and the deer didn't feel very comfortable. Had a doe come in kind of down below behind the stand, and then she walked in and around, and I never could get a shot. There were some branches in the way. A spike and the doe had come in from out in front of me. I thought for sure I was going to get a shot at them. Actually, I started to draw, and I mean, the minute I wiggled, then they just took off. It was just too open in that spot. We were pretty exposed. It was kind of a fun hunt, but it wasn't the best place, so we moved the stand.
One thing about hunting these places, when you come here first time, you don't know the lay of the land, and so when we first came here, what we started doing was the first evening is we just took off walking, and we covered these areas looking for likely travel routes.
There was this one area the very first day near the highway. We were coming in and out of a gate that we had seen a really nice buck. We put up the camera, and sure enough, we were getting some really nice bucks.
Coming up after the break,
we never did see the bucks. I had a few does come in.
Worksharp presents the Northwest Outdoorsman, brought to you by Max Lure, Hooked on Toys, Pacific Calls, Town Ford, Bob File Boats and Motors. Welcome back to whitetail hunting in the majestic Oaks.
One thing about hunting these places, when you come here first time, you don't know the lay of the land, and so when we first came here, what we started doing was the first evening is we just took off walking, and we covered these areas looking for likely travel routes.
There was this one area the very first day near the highway. We were coming in and out of a gate that we had seen a really nice buck. One of the things that works really well when you're hunting this way is to use trail cameras, and trail cameras really help you scout so that you know where animals are moving, and a lot of times the bigger deer, the bigger bucks are moving at night.
Go a little later, here's this buck. Oh gosh. That's crazy. You probably shoot him tonight. Maybe so.
And so without the trail cameras, you kind of don't know where it is they're moving. We put up the camera, and sure enough, we were getting some really nice bucks, nice for that place. Actually, they were even fighting. We got them fighting, and they were around the bale of hay that we'd put out there all night long. We set up a ground blind there, and I hunted it a couple mornings. I had a few does come in, pretty much out of range. They were pretty far away. But I did have one group come in one morning. I knew that you need to aim low, and so I'd missed a couple times, and Ronnie was telling me, dude, you gotta aim underneath them. You gotta have some air where you're aiming underneath them. Just aim low. I had all the time in the world. I picked a spot about 2 inches below the deer's chest. And where do you suppose the arrow went? Right where I aimed, so I missed low. I'd been shooting over a couple other ones. As far as shooting goes for these whitetails, one thing that is real different about these is their reaction time. Whitetail have a tremendous reaction time. It's amazing how quick they'll react. Thing over about 20 yards or so, it's really important you shoot low. If you're hunting both ground blinds and tree stands, is recognizing how you shoot out of them differently. In a tree stand, you're higher, and so you're going to be shooting down. Even though you still need to shoot low because of how these animals drop, recognize that your arrow is traveling at a downward angle. And whether you're sitting or standing in a tree stand, it's important to kind of bend your waist. Now, for me, that's kind of one thing I think happened on this trip, is that You know, I had real success in the tree stands, and then I moved to the ground blind, and I tended to miss things high. We decided that we would try setting one of our ground blinds kind of up by Les's house. And there was a lot of trails going in and out of this one area. We've seen a lot of deer and a lot of axis. And I wanted an axis deer really bad, so this was like one of the best places to set it up. It's a beautiful place. One morning I had a lot of action. The axes were kind of coming off from my right, and the first one to come in was out there about 50 yards, and I saw it go by, and that's quite a ways. Finally, it started coming in this one gap, and it was going to come right in to about 20 yards, and I thought, oh boy, here's my chance. It walked out a little ways, and I didn't hardly, I didn't even get a chance to draw my bow. For whatever reason, whether it winded me or something, it just spooked and went back in the brush and then just wandered off. And a little bit later, a group of about 3 or 4 came in the same area, and I thought they were going to kind of take the same track, but they ended up turning around and were going to leave. About 50 yards I ranged them, and I shot and I missed. It was just too far. Ron and I were real fortunate because we ended up with 9 deer, 8 whitetail and 1 axis. We were averaging 1 or 2 deer a day on this hunt. We would get it cooled down and actually just bone it up into nice pieces and then freeze them. Our check-in baggage are our coolers. Well, Ron's favorite spot is the Oak Bottom, and he killed a really nice buck there time before that we went down. We figured our best bet was down in the Oak Bottom.
Coming up after the break.
You know, it's kind of a special place for me. I had this buck start coming in. There we go.
Worksharp presents the Northwest Outdoorsman, brought to you by Max Lure, Hooked on Toys, Pacific Calls, Town Ford, Bob File Boats and Motors. Welcome back to Bandera, Texas.
Well, Ron's favorite spot is the Oak Bottom, and he killed a really nice buck there time before that we went down. It's way in the back corner of the property. It's kind of a dark spot, and the deer kind of come in and out of there. It's a really great place. So he had been hunting down there and having pretty good luck. Shot a fork and horn buck, a couple of does, and so I wanted to give it a try as well. Further on into the hunt, it got hot, and the deer just began to disappear, and we just weren't seeing that many animals. We figured our best bet was down in the Oak Bottom. It was a really beautiful place as well. It's kind of one of my favorite places to be on the place. One evening I was hunting in that tree stand in the Oak Bottom, and I had some deer kind of come in behind me. One of the mistakes I had made is I sat down in my tree stand. I stand there for a long time, not much coming, and you can shoot out of it sitting down. And I had several deer come in to the right of me, and I just couldn't turn my body far enough to the right to shoot. That stand didn't turn out to be as good as we'd hoped it would be. In the years that we've been going to Les's, he's been doing a lot of improvements to his place.
We've done some cedar programs to eliminate the thick cedar, and it's good for deer habitat and cattle habitat.
There's a controversy as to whether the cedar trees were native or whether they weren't. The way I see it, they were here, but because of the grazing, they didn't take over like they do now. The whole landscape has been dominated by these invasive species. Imagine every one of those trees is sucking up 30 gallons of water a day.
So now there's programs, and they found that clearing the cedar, you get more water. If there's cedar, there's nothing underneath. There's no grass, no habitat for any animal. You can leave some for coverage, but if you clear a lot of it, you'll have better habitat.
For me, the Oak Holler is a spot where I have killed a couple of nice bucks. These places have these big, majestic, beautiful oak trees. I mean, they're beautiful places. I really enjoyed just being there. Ron and I set up my tree stand this time by a little dry gulch. And I wasn't very high off the ground. It was probably only 8 feet, but I found kind of a nice little crook in the tree. We had some deer coming in quite a bit from the neighbor's property across the fence, and so in the evening time they would come over in there and feed on the acorns. It's kind of hard to film yourself, and so I had a camera arm in the tree with me that I was running, and there was no one else, just me and the camera and my bow. I had this buck start coming in, and it was a pretty nice one. I kept moving the camera to get in the right place, and there was this doe coming, and she came in to where I had some hay set up there, and then I could see the buck coming, and so I had turned the camera and just left it there thinking that he was going to walk right into the scene. And of course, at that point I was focused on shooting my bow, and he just barely comes into the scene. But I make a pretty good shot, and I get a pretty decent buck for this place. Down for good. There we go. Pretty good one, huh?
Awesome, dude.
Yeah. And you got a cheer. That's so funny. It was really exciting. It was a lot of fun.
Now it's time for another Harrod's Cookhouse recipe brought to you by Micklich's, Spokane's spice and gluten-free bakery since 1948. Today we are making huckleberry deer steaks. Start by rubbing your steaks or loin with Micklich's Huckleberry Barbecue Rub. Grill meat to medium rare. While meat is cooking, finely chop 1 clove of garlic and about a half a cup of onion. Begin cooking garlic and onion in olive oil in a preheated pan. Chop 1 tablespoon of fresh thyme, add to the garlic and onion, and continue cooking until translucent. Add 2/3 cup red wine, 1 tablespoon currant jelly to mixture, and cook until it reduces by half. Then add 1 cup of huckleberries or blueberries. Cook until berries burst. Add 1 tablespoon of butter and remove from heat. Pour your huckleberry sauce over medium rare steaks and enjoy.
That's really good.
For this and other great recipes, visit the Harrod Outdoors website. Tune in next week for another great wild game recipe.
Hunting out of the tree stands is similar in how you locate them as the ground blinds. Again, you want to look for major travel routes, feeding or bedding areas, and place your tree stand in a place that you have lots of shooting lanes, you know, down each one of those travel routes or through the trees to those feeding areas that you know they're using. So in a way, that part of it's really similar.